our regular domain is better. We're in the process of having SSL in place. We kind of fixed the client-side routing issue. Half fixed. We'll give ourselves half credit for that one. And now we have the issue where it's still located, in my case, in Virginia, right? Not too bad, but like again, the further you get from Virginia, the worse it's going to get. So the way that we will solve for that is using a little thing called CloudFront. We'll talk about that one together. We're going to set up CloudFront. CloudFront takes a little bit because, like I mentioned before, it's setting up your assets on a CDN like around the world. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through and set it up for a little bit. Then we'll talk about it and explain it while it's baking. And that will then allow us to, hopefully, by the time I'm done talking, it should be ready to go. So the steps that we're going to do together, I'm just going to kind of call them out, is we're going to create a new CloudFront distribution. Right? A distribution is just a CloudFront setup. If S3 is buckets, then CloudFront is distributions. Right? So we're distributing your app around the world. It's a CloudFront distribution. We are going to point it at our static website on S3. We'll add in those domain names. We'll set up the gzipping and brotli-ing of our applications. We'll set a default root object. Basically, instead of pointing to the S3 bucket, you will now talk to CloudFront. While that is all cooking, we will kind of get a little bit more into what CloudFront is and why we did all of that. But let's start the process in our case. So we'll head over to CloudFront, back into the console. We'll find CloudFront. There's also Cloud9, CloudFormation, which is like templates for a lot of this stuff. CloudWatch, which is your logs. Cloud9, which is an editor. It's great. Everything's great. So let's get this set up. Let's go ahead and we'll create a new CloudFront distribution. So the origin domain, we're going to start by, it feels really tempting to pick one of these. If you do, it will break quietly and silently. Now, there's a way to get these working in a little bit. But like right now, we're not actually pointing at the S3 bucket. We want to point to the actual website that we have. But yeah, usually like, yeah, I'm going to click one of these. It's not going to be a great scene. So there's a way to eventually get this working in a little bit, but we're going to have to do some additional steps as well. And we'll actually solve for another problem as we handle that. But for now, go back into that bucket actually for a second. So S3. And we'll find superawesome.click. Enter the properties. We want this version of the URL. So CloudFront's going to point at that URL. Like I said, if you pick that one from the list, it won't work. A lot of this stuff with S3 and CloudFront is like oral history. So there's a lot of places that will say you can never get it to work if you pick from that list. It's technically not true anymore. We'll cover how to make it work. But right now, it's definitely still true. So yeah. So it's one of those things, too. You got to kind of be careful what you read with some of the stuff, like most things. So we'll paste in that URL. And you can see that it mostly figured out where it's going. But we have that kind of in place. So you can basically add any custom headers. We don't really need at this point. Origin Shield is even more protection. Origin Shield, when we talk about CloudFront, I'll kind of mention it a little bit more, will make sure even fewer things make it to the actual source, right? It's usually helpful to protect load from your actual servers. For the case of our S3 bucket, it's maybe not the most important thing, so we're going to skip it just for now. Scrolling down a little bit more, we've got the path pattern. We basically want the same basic setup for most things. I'll show you how to add special cases. Like, no, I want my images to have a different cache policy than my JavaScript files. You can do all of that. Right now, we just don't have enough to care just yet. It used to be that these settings for this, you had to change a whole bunch to actually do the right thing. The nice part about the modern day setup of CloudFront is that like the good choices are mostly in place for you. So yeah, we would like to compress objects. Like, cool, if you can gzip things and use brotli compression, please do. Right? Don't make me opt into that. I would like that, please. The one we are going to change, which is if they go to http:// just move them over to HTTPS, right? So have that in place. Allowed methods. This one, for our cases, get and head is just fine. However, you could put CloudFront in front of an API as well, at which point you might want to let post requests through and stuff along those lines. So this one, we're just putting the static assets there. They're just going to get our lovely web pages and load them into their browsers. We'll go with the recommended cache policy. We will spend more than enough time in this section later going through, use all the edge locations versus use only North America and Europe, use only, you can pick different regions. Some of this might have to do with like, those ads on YouTube videos and podcasts for a VPN on where you can get stuff. Also like different, legal requirements on where you can and cannot have data, so on and so forth. But like for our cases, like, yeah, we want the best possible performance. Alternative domain name. We do want to set that up. And we're going to add in superawesome.click, or in your case, your own. And you guessed it, www.superawesome.click. So then we need to tell it where the SSL cert is for the HTTPS. All right, fingers crossed. Hey, my cert is ready. That's why we did it before. It would have been a real bummer if it got this far and and now we have to stop, go make a cert, and wait. So the reason we made that certificate before in the Amazon Certificate Manager is to have it ready to go now. So that is in place. And you'll notice, if you don't see it, you might have to go regenerate it in US East 1, right? The little note here, which is certificate must be generated in US East, North Virginia, region 1. The reason for that is technically, while CloudFront is globally distributed, that is technically where CloudFront lives. So all of the CloudFront specific stuff needs to be in US East 1. So if you had a US East 2 or a US West 2, which is when I was doing it the other day, and then I had to do it a second time because I forgot about that fact, you do need to you can go through the same process we did before. We'll give you a little time in a little bit to just regenerate the cert in US East 1. Going on, we want to support HTTP 2, which we'll talk about in a second as well. And then the default root object, in this case, is going to be /index.html, right? Just as it was when we set it up in S3. We'll go ahead and we will create that distribution. And while we're at it, we are going to change the Route 53 from now pointing to just the bucket to our CloudFront distribution. Got registered domains, manage DNS. Remember, we're going to view the details. In this case, we can go find it. Edit the record. Now, alias instead to a CloudFront distribution. That's going to be in US East 1. Here's our very fancy name. If you did not register a domain name, you obviously don't have to do this part, but this will likely be the domain name that you'll be working with, which is totally fine. And we'll have that in place. And everything else here seems really cool. This is what I was talking about before about if you had multiple servers, right, and you wanted to route it to the one closest to them, the one with the lowest latency, so on and so forth. We're using CloudFront, which that is literally what CloudFront does. So we don't need that, but kind of just pointing out that it's there. All right, so now we are also updating the DNS as well. Let's go ahead and do the same for the www. So we will let that cook for a little bit. In the meantime, let's talk a little bit about S3.